We are in the midst of a board game renaissance. Maybe you've noticed that the board game section in these big box stores such as Barnes & Noble and Target keeps getting bigger. Maybe you've read a few articles on CNN and Slate and New York Times as board game media gets a little bit more of a spotlight. Or maybe you have that one family member or friend that keeps inviting you to game night and you don't know what all the hubbub is about. Regardless, I'm going to try to get you a good introduction here into this massive world of modern board games in 5 easy steps. Let's get started. Hello there, Frankie and I want to let you know that we actually have a Patreon now. So if you like what we're doing over here on the Rolling Reggie channel, you've got 3 levels to support, even as low as $2 a month. Thank you so much for considering it. Obviously, you don't have to spend money. A like, a subscribe, just sharing a video will do it all. But Patreon's going to offer people availability to vote on my monthly video recommendations. And there's going to be a lot of extra content on there like playthroughs and special videos that aren't great for the algorithm. Now back to the video. All right, so step 1 is research. Now, I am kind of 110% hobbyist in anything that I do, and so I really dove deep into this hobby, and just like any other hobby, there is just so much jargon. There's so much lingo and terminology that you have to know in the world of board games. So I stumbled across very early on this article from introgames.com, I'll link it below, of some popular mechanics and terminology. It is a great starting place to just learn some of these things. I found quickly when I started talking to board game people or watching board game content online, these terms get thrown around all the time and not necessarily explained. So it's great to do your own research, have this little glossary, bookmark it, and then you'll get to go forward with your introduction to the hobby without being so lost every time someone says a certain term. And it really is a lot of content. I am literally wearing a shirt right now that is all board game mechanics on it. It is really something special, but once you're inside once you're in the inner circle, it really feels good to know immediately what a description of a game is just with a few terms that the average person might not have any idea what they are. So check that out. Next up, and probably the most important tip, so I'm going to spend the most time on here, in the researching, you gotta go to BoardGameGeek.com. I personally have the app. I think it's amazing. It is a central hub that collects, basically, it's an entire database, all the board game knowledge you might need. So I have my iPad here, and we're gonna just scroll through. I'm gonna show you what we're looking at, and we're gonna start with one of my favorite small box games called Sushi Go, okay? Big things you get. Came out in 2013. Its overall ranking, according to the BGG users. It's got all the ratings, a nice description of the game. How many players is it played at? There's even a poll that says what people can vote on, saying how many players it's best played at. A big one is playing time and weight. So the BGG weight, if you go check out my gateway video, I put the BGG weight out of 5 for every single game I introduced people to, and I liked to keep them pretty light. If you're just starting out, you don't want to go to these 4s or 5s. 1 being light, 2 medium light, 3 medium, 4 medium heavy, 5 heavy. You might want to avoid those 4s and 5s when you're just starting out. But it's really great to just kind of see how difficult / complex is each board game that I'm looking at. Keep on going. I really appreciate the classification tab. It says, hey, this is a card game. That's the category it's in. All the mechanisms we talked about, they're great because you can actually go through them. You can see closed drafting, hand management, set collection. I might figure out, oh, I really like collecting sets of cards or tiles or whatever it is. What are some of the most popular set collection games? What are some of the most popular simultaneous action selection? Like, I don't know what that is. After you play Sushi Go or a game you've already played, you're like, oh, I love being able to take actions at the same time as everyone else. I don't like having to wait for everyone else's turn. Maybe I should find other games that have simultaneous action selection. And then it has the families that it's in. I really like to focus on the theme as well. Food / cooking. There's so many games. You're like, what? I'm a chef at home or something. I want to check out A Feast for Odin or Food Chain Magnet. Wait, there's Sushi Go Party. It's really great to just see all the different types of games that are out here just by seeing what classifications BGG puts in a game that you look up. Another section is awards and honors. You don't have to take this as law that the game is amazing. It's not a guarantee, but I like to use it similarly to like Oscars or Golden Globes. I like to look at the winners and the nominations to just give me an idea of some games. Maybe I'll just stumble upon a game I've never heard of and give it a chance, and maybe I'll like it, maybe I won't. But if a few people like it or critics like it, for me personally, it's worth giving a shot. And finally, there's a lot more on BGG, but one thing I really want to focus on is the designer here. Now, unlike growing up with Clue and Monopoly, the designer really typically was not on the box. We are in an era of really, really prominently displaying the designer, the artist, the publisher of modern day board games. And similar to reading a book, yes, the publisher is important. They make it pretty, they get it sold, but the person you want to follow is the author of a book. So for board games, if you find a game you love, you might want to go check out other games by them. Phil Walker Harding did Sushi Go. He's actually an Aussie designer, very much known for introductory type games. So I go look at his top games as designer on BGG, and I love all 6 of them that I see right here. So it is a really neat way to find more games that are made by someone that you already appreciate their work, just like reading a book by the author that you love. So I really love checking out the designers and even the artists I will follow, and sometimes even the publishers. Some publishers have a really great track record of only finding great games and making them look beautiful as well. One bonus tip on BoardGameGeek, there can be really unique things like in the files or in the forums. My example in the forums is Res Arcana, one of my favorite games. The designer himself, Tom Lehman, answers any rules questions you have with the board games in the forum. So if you have a question, you can just type in Res Arcana question BoardGameGeek and it will probably pop up in the forums. Same with the files. I think one thing I was really adverse to early on was looking at rule books. I was just buying games willy-nilly and not even really knowing how the game played, just based on the box cover. I now kind of take my time, look at the rule books. They're all in PDF form on the BGG page. There's also really cool things like solo variants. There's a lot of games that are 2 to 5 players or 2 to 4 players, and I just want to try them out, and someone has actually designed a solo variant. Sometimes it's the designer and they put those instructions onto BoardGameGeek. There's a lot of great stuff like that in the files, so check that out as well. The last piece of advice for doing your research is one really cool website called TryTheseGames. This is where you can put in specifically games that you enjoy, and it will come up with other examples of games that people on BGG typically do like. I think this is a little bit better than even how BoardGameGeek does its recommendations, where it says fans also like. I think TryTheseGames is a great website. Again, no sponsor here, but I've used it a lot lately when I'm trying to find games for people. Once I've found one game that they like, I try to find some more that they might like and look in my collection or go check them out in the shop. So that is trythesegames.com. Okay, we've got 4 more tips for you. They're a little bit quicker than the first one. Of course, within this hobby, there's a lot of research to be had, so I did want to spend a lot of time on that. But we'll move on to step 2, which is watch and listen. You've already started doing that by coming to my YouTube channel. You have great taste, but I really want to shout out some of the content creators that either personally helped me get into the hobby or that can consistently make videos right now. There are so many content creators out there. I'm not as consistent as I'd like to be even, but I want to just shout out these channels here. I'm gonna put this beautiful graphic up so you can see all the YouTube channels that I personally subscribe to, that I watch very consistently, that also produce content often and give you great recommendations and learning tools about board games. There's other social media as well. Check out Twitter. It's still very big for board games. TikTok, Instagram. I'm very much present on Instagram as well. If you've watched my stories at all, you know I'm sharing what I'm playing at the table all the time, and people DM and ask questions. So check me out there. And there's a lot of great creators on Instagram and those other social medias. And finally, I'm just gonna put a small list of my personal favorite podcasts. Now that might be next step once you've really gotten into the hobby a little bit, but pretty much every car ride, I have become a board game podcast listener, so check these ones out here. So that's it for watch and listen, YouTube, podcasts, social media. There's so much great content about board games in this space. All right, step 3 is go out there and play some board games, okay? I've got 4 locations for you here. So number 1 is your own friendly local game store. Now, there are so many of them out there. People call them FLGS or flags. Everyone who works inside of a game shop or anyone who frequents a game shop is awesome. They're going to help point you in the right direction. be brave and ask questions. They really want to help. Everyone wants to bring people in to this board game. So I started going around to my board game shop very often around here in Oregon. And every time I'm in a new city, I love to check out board game shops. Many board game shops even have a rental library that you can either pay and rent some games to take with you, or a lot of the times it's usually just a big shelf of games that you can just play in the shop. And so you can test out games that you might like. Just sit there with a rule book and learn it, or with bring some friends. Really great. They want people in the shop. So I really recommend going to your friendly local game store. Google just board games. I bet you have more around in your vicinity than you think. Another place to check are local libraries. I think this is something people do not think about. My local library has an amazing board game collection, and some of them are the new hotness games. So I have played many games for the first time by renting them from our local library. Really wanted to give that a shout out because I had no idea before I got into the hobby. A third place is Meetup. This is something, Facebook groups or Meetup, these are really great places to find some people to play with. Sometimes you want to play big group games and you don't have that many friends around you, or all your friends aren't interested in this, or the person that's living in your house isn't interested in board games. I personally found Meetups really helpful in the beginning, and I started playing games that I had never ever heard of or had never thought of, because a lot of people will bring their own games that they want to play with strangers, and it's also a great way to be social with people in your local area. Something that, again, you don't have to do right away is our conventions. There are so many big ones. The big ones in the US tend to be Origins, PAX Unplugged, BGG Con, I'm forgetting one right now, Gen Con, which is coming up in August, and the one that I go to the most often is Dice Tower West in Vegas. There are so many local ones as well. Definitely check it out. Go Google it, see, ask your friendly local game shop. Conventions are a great place, obviously, when you're in the hobby, but I think they're more welcoming to new gamers than I think people expect. Go there, again, so many board games there. There are events, there are panels, there's giveaways, there's people just playing games all over the place. Really recommend checking out conventions. And if you're daunted by the big giant ones, start with one that's local to you, something that's drivable. Check it out, see what you think, if that might be right up your alley. And my final step for getting into this hobby is actually staying in and playing. Check out games for yourself. Again, solo, I think, is something that took me way too long to be willing to try. I never understood why people might want to play solo board games, but I'm going to encourage you to, one, try those out first if you can't get anybody to come with you. But if you can, host a game night, get some great snacks, tell people to put their phones away, set up a game ahead of time, learn a couple games ahead of time, maybe even give people a nice smorgasbord of options of games. Personally, game nights have just been such a special way for me to get closer to my family, get closer to my friends, and I've really been appreciative of this hobby because of getting people around the table face to face, no technology. Board games are really special in that way. Some quick bonus tips for you here. One is a website called Mellow Dice. If you are playing board games at home or at someone's house, pull out this website. You can put it on your phone or whatever, type in a board game, and it will come up with a music playlist that will evoke the theme of that board game. That's really great. And finally, a website that I am on pretty much every day, all day, and that is Board Game Arena. It is a website where you can play board games for free, or you can pay a premium fee, which is very affordable. I think it's like $3 or $4 a month to play all the games in their library at any time, but you can play real time with your friends virtually, or you can play with anyone across the planet, turn-based as well, where you can just take your turn and then they will get to take their turn at some point within the day when it's convenient for them. For me, Board Game Arena is so amazing for discovering new games and just getting that itch scratched. Once you get into this hobby, you're going to want to keep playing. I love to use Board Game Arena for my day-to-day playing, and especially for discovering new games at this point, especially for discovering new games without breaking the bank. If you're a real gamer already and you want to add some tips I forgot, please comment them below. If you have any questions and you're new to it, also comment them below as well. We'd want to welcome all of you awesome people into this lovely hobby we call modern board games. Quick interruption here. If you get into this board game, be forewarned, there's lots of symptoms that come with getting the board game fever, so I'm just going to have them scroll on the screen right now. You've been warned.